I read this story this morning. Running back Saquon Barkley, Penn State, blew everybody's mind at the NFL Combine. He may go number 1 in the draft. Whoa, what? Okay, time out. So because he, in his shorts, ran fast, we've gone from 2 years ago where you can't take a running back in the first round to he's going to go number 1. Whoa, 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 whoa. The pendulum now is swinging too far. Let me give you some never forgets with great running backs. Ezekiel Elliott, number 1, never forget, inherited the best offensive line in the NFL in the Dallas Cowboys. Never forget that. If Ezekiel Elliott doesn't have that running back, conveyor belt of Pro Bowlers up front, he's not Ezekiel Elliott. Number 2, never forget. The Jags were 7-6 with Leonard Fournette. They were 3-0 without him. And they rushed for more yards per game when Leonard Fournette, another great running back out of LSU, did not play. Never forget the great Todd Hurley 2 years ago had under 900 yards. Why? He had a bad offensive line. So 2 years ago, the Cowboys got nothing but pushback for taking a running back like 4th, and now the Cleveland Browns, in dire need of a quarterback, in a class in which there's a bunch of really good young quarterback prospects, are going to bail on it for a running back. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Indianapolis has a quarterback. You want to take Barkley at 3, knock yourself out. The Bears have a young quarterback. You want to take a quarterback at 8, knock yourself out. San Francisco's got the 9th pick. They have Garoppolo. By all means, take a running back. Never forget, Zeke inherited the best O-line in football. Never forget the Jags running game better when he didn't play. Never forget Todd Gurley, 800 yards 2 years ago, and the offensive line stunk. If you don't have a quarterback, you take one. This is because Twitter and the Combine is like peanut butter and jelly. They're just built for each other. Everybody's going nuts now. Let me give you 3 more never forgets about running backs. The last 10 Super Bowl champs, only 3 have had a 1,000-yard rusher. Never forget the 2 teams in this year's Super Bowl, New England and Philly, used a rotation of several running backs. Never forget number 6, Alvin Kamara, Saints, Offensive Rookie of the Year, was drafted in the 3rd round. You know why? My takeaway from this weekend's Combine, my number 1 takeaway was actually this. Saquon Barkley's amazing, but I saw like 8 different college running backs. I love this Mark Walton from the Miami Hurricanes. You can get 80% of Saquon Barkley in the 4th round. And if you don't have a quarterback, Cleveland, you're now considering moving Barkley as your number 1 pick? Wow. I see this all the time. I've always told this story about my business. I worked in the local news business. Kristine did as well. I worked in it for about 15 years. And this is the way it always worked. You'd have that news director who was a yeller and a screamer, and the ratings would go up, but he'd wear people out, and then they'd fire him. And then they'd hire somebody that was the opposite of the yeller screamer. He was milquetoast. And after 2 and 3 years, he'd get fired because he couldn't motivate anybody. The pendulum would swing way too far. What you needed was a news director who was a tough guy but had some compassion. Like now running back should go number 1? No, they shouldn't. There's like 8, 9, 10, 12 guys in this draft who can give you 80% of Saquon Barkley, and some of them will go undrafted. I mean, God, the SEC puts out about 4 guys a year that none of you watched, and they end up ending up on the Patriots roster. God. Slow down. I like Barkley. I like him a lot. If you don't have a quarterback, don't take Barkley. Take Darnold. Take Rosen. Take somebody who plays quarterback. One of the things I think is really important, let me just personalize this in my business. I host a show. And then with Speak for Yourself, I'm a co-host of a show. And then on Sundays, I do NFL Kickoff, where I'm on like a set with 5 other people. I'm willing to host. I can co-host. I can be on the set with 5 people. If you want me to write a book, I've done that before. I can do just radio. I can do TV. Why? because it increases my employment opportunities. I said this for years about Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow was only willing to be a quarterback. If Tim Tebow would have been willing to be other positions, I've said this 100 times, I think he's good enough to be an NFL player. But he wasn't willing to do that. Lamar Jackson, the fastest quarterback I think I've ever seen, would not run the 40 at the combine. He said, I only want to be seen as a quarterback. I have no problem with that. But I'll say about Lamar Jackson what I said about Tim Tebow and what I would tell any young broadcaster. The more you're willing to do, the more employable you are. It's just that simple. If you're only willing to do a show in which you are the star host, what about a co-host? What about working on a set with 5 people? What about reporting? Can you do some writing? Can you do some streaming stuff? If you're not willing to, God love you. But even the stars in my business, Rush Limbaugh, have written books, are willing to do things behind a paywall. He has a newsletter. If you're just going to say, as Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, is a really, really mediocre pocket passer to this point in his career, even with Bobby Petrino, Tim Tebow was a really, really mediocre pocket passer in college and in the NFL. But Tim was only willing to play one position. His greatest gift was his locker room zeal, his esprit de corps, his decency, his work ethic. It wasn't that he could throw a football. That wasn't his strength. Listen, all of these kids, I'll give you my after the combine this weekend, their chance of succeeding in the NFL, they've all got an issue. I think Sam Darnold is 90 to 95% chance to be successful. His issue is the Browns. They butcher everything. They could screw it up. Josh Rosen, UCLA, has about an 80 to 85% chance of succeeding. Durability is his issue. He's thin. I've seen him get hurt before. That scares me. Baker Mayfield has about a 65-70% chance, I think, to be successful. He's got maturity issues. Josh Allen, who had a very good weekend, he has got an absolute hose for an arm, has about a 60-65% chance. He's got major accuracy issues. He's just not very accurate. And Lamar Jackson, to me, has got about 45-50% chance to succeed. I never see him as a guy who's going to be a pure pocket passer. And now he's not willing to run the 40 at the combine. Dude, it's your gift. The man upstairs gave it to you. Show off. I said that about Tim Tebow. Dude, suck it up. You can catch. You're an athlete. You're a baseball player. You're an NFL player. You were a great high school athlete, Tim. Show it off. So I would say this about Lamar Jackson or any young person. If you're not, you could even be really good, but if you are gifted enough, I mean, Tim Tebow has a chance to play for the Mets. If you are gifted enough, show your bosses you can do a bunch of stuff. If you can run a 40 at 4.2 as a quarterback, you run it at the combine. And God love you if you only want to be a quarterback. But if you sat and interviewed for the New England Patriots, the best quarterback of my life, and Bill Belichick, and they said, hey, what would you think if we gave you a quarterback shot for a year? But after a year, if we don't feel you're progressing, we may use you at slot. You don't have to. But there's a reason Tebow's playing baseball. He wasn't willing as a non-elite pocket guy. After NFL people decided you're not good enough at that, he said, okay, I'm out. And I'll support you all the way. But that's just the way the world works. If you got a gift, show it off. Be willing to do more than one thing. Well, they're not asking Josh Allen to. Josh Allen can only play one position. He's not a guy that can do anything else. He's not going to be an edge rusher or a guard. Tim Tebow could have made this league doing multiple things. Lamar Jackson can make this league, maybe as a quarterback, absolutely on the perimeter. That's not even arguable. The more you're willing to do, the more opportunities life presents.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.